The millionaire CEO couldn't close the deal until his maid revealed a hidden talent. Before the story begins, let's make this personal. What brought you here today? A recommendation, curiosity, or maybe just the universe guiding you? Richard Sterling stood at the floor-to-ceiling windows of his Manhattan office, watching the January snow fall on the bustling streets 40 floors below. At 45, he had built Sterling Technologies from a garage startup into a billion-dollar empire. But today felt like the beginning of the end. The quarterly reports scattered across his mahogany desk told a devastating story. His latest venture into renewable energy technology was hemorrhaging money faster than he could inject capital. $50 million invested, and the solar panel efficiency breakthrough they'd promised investors remained elusive. Mr. Sterling, his assistant, knocked gently on the door. "Marcus Kane is here for your 3 o'clock. Richard's jaw tightened. Marcus Kane, the vulture investor who'd been circling Sterling Technologies for months. Knowing they were vulnerable, send him in. Kane entered with his predatory smile, his silver hair perfectly styled, carrying a leather portfolio. "Richard, you look tired, my friend. Cut the pleasantries, Marcus. What do you want?" Kane placed the portfolio on the desk. "I'm prepared to offer 40 cents on the dollar for Sterling Technologies. That's $200 million for your company." $200 million? Richard's voice was dangerously quiet. 5 years ago, we were valued at $500 million. That was before your green energy gamble. Kane's smile widened. Face reality. "Richard, you've got 6 months before your creditors come calling. Take my offer, and you can retire comfortably." After Kane left, Richard slumped in his chair, outside. The snow continued falling, each flake like another dollar bleeding from his accounts. His late wife Sarah had always believed in his vision. 3 years after losing her in that car accident, he was about to lose everything they'd built together. The intercom buzzed. "Mr. Sterling, Emma's here to clean your office. Send her in." He barely looked up as Emma Rodriguez entered quietly, pushing her cleaning cart. In the 2 years she'd worked for the building service, she'd become a familiar presence, always efficient, never intrusive. Emma was 32, with warm brown eyes and dark hair usually pulled back in a practical ponytail. As a single mother to 8-year-old Diego, she worked 3 jobs to make ends meet. Richard had noticed her quiet competence, the way she seemed to absorb everything around her while going about her work. Tonight, as she began organizing the scattered reports, she paused. "These numbers, they don't look right." Richard looked up, surprised. "I'm sorry." Emma's cheeks flushed. "I shouldn't have. I just noticed the energy conversion rates in these projections. They seem off by almost 30%, for the first time all day." Richard truly focused on someone else. "You understand these reports? I have a background in applied mathematics, Met." Actually, she looked embarrassed, "but life happens, and cleaning pays the bills immediately." Richard stared at this woman he'd barely noticed for 2 years. "Met, full scholarship. I was working on my master's in renewable energy systems when I got pregnant. Diego's father left when he was 3, and I needed steady income fast." She resumed cleaning, clearly regretting her outburst, but Richard's mind was racing. He grabbed one of the most complex reports. "If you had to guess, where would you say the problem is?" Emma hesitated, then pointed to a specific calculation. "Here, you're assuming linear efficiency gains, but quantum photovoltaic systems follow logarithmic curves. The more you scale up, the less efficient each additional panel becomes." Richard's heart began to pound. "How long would it take you to review all these projections?" "Mr. Sterling, I really should finish cleaning." "How long, Emma?" She met his eyes, and he saw intelligence burning there that he'd somehow missed for 24 months. "Give me tonight." The next morning, Richard arrived at his office to find Emma sitting in the hallway outside his door, a stack of neatly organized papers in her lap. Dark circles under her eyes suggested she hadn't slept, but her expression was alert and determined. "You're early," he said, unlocking his office. "I finished around 4 a.m. Mr. Sterling, your company isn't failing because of bad technology. You're failing because someone has been deliberately sabotaging your calculations." Richard's coffee mug stopped halfway to his lips. "What?" Emma followed him inside, spreading the reports across his desk with practiced efficiency. Look at this pattern. Every projection submitted by your head engineer, David Chen, contains the same mathematical error, but it's too consistent to be accidental. She pointed to specific formulas highlighted in different colored pens. He's been using the wrong coefficient for thermal resistance, but only in the projections that go to investors and board members. The internal testing reports use the correct calculations. That's impossible. David's been with me for 8 years. Has he received any offers from other companies recently? Richard's face went pale. Marcus Kane tried to recruit him last year. David said he turned it down. He sank into his chair. You're suggesting David has been working for Kane this entire time. I'm suggesting someone has been feeding Kane inside information about your weaknesses, while deliberately undermining your actual capabilities. Emma's voice was steady, professional. Your solar technology isn't just viable, Mr. Sterling. With the correct calculations, it's revolutionary. Emma pulled out a tablet, her own device. Richard noticed, not a company one. I spent the night running proper simulations. With accurate thermal coefficients and corrected scaling formulas, your panel should achieve 68% efficiency. 68%, Richard's voice was barely a whisper. The industry standard is 22%. Exactly. Kane isn't trying to buy a failing company. He's trying to steal the technology that will dominate renewable energy for the next 50 years. Richard studied Emma's face, seeing not the quiet cleaning woman he'd barely noticed, but a brilliant mind that had been hiding in plain sight. Why are you helping me? Emma's expression softened. Because I believe in what you're trying to build. Clean energy that could actually change the world. And because, she hesitated, because I know what it's like to have someone take advantage of your trust. Diego's father, he was my research partner at MIT. We developed some of the foundational algorithms you're using now. When I got pregnant, he disappeared with our research. He's probably working for some tech company under his own name now. Richard felt a surge of protective anger that surprised him. Emma, I want to offer you a position, not cleaning, as my chief technology analyst. Mr. Sterling, I appreciate the gesture, but it's not a gesture. I need someone I can trust completely, and you've just proven you understand this technology better than anyone on my payroll. He leaned forward. What would it take for you to say yes? Emma looked out the window where snow was still falling. Diego gets out of school at 3:30. I need to be home by 4 every day. Done. What else? If this works, if we actually pull this off, I want a percentage of the patent rights. Small, but something, for Diego's future. Richard extended his hand. 5% of any patents we develop together. 2% is fair. 5%, Emma, take it. As they shook hands, Richard felt something he hadn't experienced since Sarah's death hope, but also something else, something that made him acutely aware of Emma's warm palm against his. The way her eyes sparkled when she talked about the technology. The intercom buzzed. Mr. Sterling, David Chen is here for your morning meeting. Richard and Emma exchanged glances. Send him in, Richard said. Emma, stay. I want you to hear this. David entered, his usual confident smile faltering when he saw Emma standing beside Richard's desk with the reports spread out between them. David, Richard said calmly, I think we need to discuss some discrepancies in your calculations. David's face went very pale, and Richard knew Emma had been right about everything. The question now was, what else had she been right about? David Chen's confident facade crumbled like a house of cards. His eyes darted between the corrected calculations spread across Richard's desk, and Emma's determined face. Richard, I can explain. Please do. Richard's voice carried the cold authority that had built his empire. Explain why your internal test reports show 68% efficiency, while your investor presentations show 37%. David's hands trembled as he reached for the papers. There must be some mistake in the data compilation. The mistake, Emma interrupted quietly, is thinking no one would notice the pattern. You've been systematically undermining this company for months. Who is she to make accusations? David's desperation made him reckless. She's a cleaning lady. She's a MIT graduate who spotted in one night what you've been hiding for 8 months. Richard stood slowly, Security will escort you out. You have 30 minutes to clear your personal items." After David was removed, Richard turned to Emma. "How long before Kane realizes his inside source is compromised?" "Probably by this afternoon. David will contact him the moment he's off the premises." Emma was already gathering the corrected reports. "We need to move fast. What do you suggest?" Emma's eyes brightened with strategic thinking. "We turn the tables. Give Kane exactly what he expects, a desperate CEO about to lose everything. Meanwhile, we file the corrected patents and prepare for mass production. That's risky. If Kane suspects, he won't. His arrogance won't let him believe a cleaning woman outsmarted his 8-year plan." Emma's smile was fierce. "Besides, I have an idea that could make this very profitable for both of us." 3 hours later, Richard found himself in the most important performance of his life. Kane sat across from his desk, that predatory smile, even wider than yesterday. "Richard, I heard about David Chen. Losing your head engineer must be devastating." "It is." Richard made his voice sound defeated. "The board is calling an emergency meeting tomorrow. I think I'm ready to consider your offer." Kane's eyes glittered. "Perhaps we could discuss 35 cents on the dollar now that your situation has deteriorated." In the hallway outside, Emma listened through the slightly open door, taking notes on everything Kane said. They'd hidden tiny recording devices throughout the office, completely legal, since it was Richard's own space. "I need until Friday to present your offer to the board." Richard continued, "It's a formality, but they need to hear it officially. Of course, I'll have my lawyers draft the paperwork." Kane stood, practically radiating satisfaction. "Richard, you're making the smart choice. Sometimes knowing when to quit is the mark of true success." After Kane left, Emma entered the office. "He bought it completely. Did you see how he adjusted his offer downward? 35 cents instead of 40. His greed is showing." Richard loosened his tie. "Emma, what you're asking me to do, pretending my company is failing while secretly preparing to launch the most revolutionary solar technology ever developed, it could backfire spectacularly. Or it could make you the wealthiest man in renewable energy." Emma moved to the window, looking out at the afternoon sky. "Mr. Sterling, can I ask you something personal?" "Richard, and yes, why didn't you give up after your wife died? It would have been easier to sell then, when the company was worth more." Richard was quiet for a long moment. "Sarah believed this technology could change the world. She used to say that every solar panel we perfected was another step toward a future where Diego's generation wouldn't inherit our environmental mistakes." Emma turned from the window, and Richard saw tears in her eyes. "She sounds like she was an amazing woman. She would have liked you. Sarah always said the most brilliant people were often hiding in plain sight, waiting for someone to notice their potential. Is that what you're doing? Noticing my potential?" There was something in her voice that made Richard's heartbeat quicken. "Emma," the intercom buzzed. "Mr. Sterling, your son's school is online too. There's been an incident." Emma's face went white. "Diego." Richard grabbed the phone. "This is Richard Sterling. What happened to Diego Rodriguez?" "Mr. Sterling, we have Diego listed as your emergency contact. There was an accident on the playground. He's conscious, but we're sending him to Mount Sinai for x-rays." Emma was already reaching for her coat. "I have to go. We're going together." Richard was already calling his driver. "Marcus, bring the car around. Emergency." As they rushed toward the elevator, Richard realized something had fundamentally shifted. This wasn't just about business anymore. Somewhere between yesterday's desperation and today's hope, Emma Rodriguez had become much more than his brilliant new analyst. She'd become someone whose pain he couldn't bear to watch, and that terrified him almost as much as losing his company. The emergency room at Mount Sinai Hospital was a chaos of sounds and medical efficiency. But Richard's focus was entirely on Emma as she paced the waiting area. Her professional composure had completely dissolved the moment they'd heard about Diego's accident. "Mrs. Rodriguez?" A young doctor appeared with a clipboard. "Diego is going to be fine. Just a hairline fracture in his left wrist. We'll need to put it in a cast, but he should heal completely in 6 weeks." Emma's knees buckled with relief, and Richard caught her elbow, steadying her. "Can I see him?" "Of course, room 3B." Diego Rodriguez was small for 8 years old, with his mother's warm brown eyes and a gap-toothed grin that immediately reminded Richard of his own childhood. Despite the obvious pain in his wrist, the boy was chattering excitedly to the nurse about his x-rays. "Mom, look at this. You can see my bones." Diego waved the x-ray film with his good hand. "The doctor said I fell. Just right, or it could have been way worse." Emma hugged him carefully, tears flowing freely now. "Mio, you scared me to death." "Who's that?" Diego pointed at Richard, who had been hanging back near the doorway. "This is Mr. Sterling. He's my boss, the rich guy with the big building." Diego's eyes widened. "Mom talks about you sometimes. She says you're trying to save the planet with solar power." Richard stepped forward, charmed despite the circumstances. "Is that what she says?" "Yeah. And she always gets really excited when she talks about the math stuff. Mom's like, super smart. But most people don't know it." Emma's cheeks flushed. "Diego, it's true. She was helping me with my homework last week, and she solved this really hard multiplication problem in her head faster than my calculator." Richard knelt down to Diego's level. "Your mom is helping me solve some really complicated problems too. She might save my company." "Cool. Are you going to marry her?" "Diego," Emma's face turned crimson, but Richard found himself studying the question seriously. "Why would you ask that?" "Because you look at her the same way Carlos's dad looks at his new wife, and you drove us to the hospital even though you don't really know us." From the mouths of babes, Richard thought, "Your mom is a very special person, Diego. I'm lucky to know her." 2 hours later, with Diego's wrist properly casted and strict instructions for care, Richard's driver took them to Emma's apartment in Queens. Richard had expected something modest, but he wasn't prepared for the warmth that greeted him when Emma opened the door. The small, 2-bedroom apartment was filled with evidence of a rich life lived on a tight budget. Diego's artwork covered the refrigerator, and the living room walls were lined with mathematical textbooks alongside children's picture books. A small desk in the corner was covered with papers. Emma's continued work on the Sterling technology. Calculations. "You've been working on this at home?" Richard asked, examining the neat rows of equations. "Diego goes to bed at 8. I usually have 3 or 4 hours before I crash." Emma was helping Diego settle on the couch with ice for his wrist. "I've been running simulations on different manufacturing scenarios. Mom works every night after I go to sleep," Diego said. "She thinks I don't know, but I see the light under her door." Richard felt a profound admiration for this woman who worked 3 jobs during the day and then spent her nights solving complex engineering problems by lamplight. "Emma, you need proper equipment, a real workspace." "Mr. Sterling," Richard, "I can't accept. You're not accepting charity. You're accepting the tools you need to do the job I'm paying you for." Richard's voice was firm. "Tomorrow, we're setting up a proper office for you. Computer, software, whatever you need." "What about Diego after school?" Richard looked at the boy, who was watching their conversation with intelligent eyes. "What if Diego came to the office with you? We have a conference room he could use for homework. Better than you rushing home every day. Could I see the big building?" Diego asked excitedly. "Every day, if you want." Emma's eyes filled with tears again. "Richard, why are you doing this?" It was a fair question, and Richard found himself answering with more honesty than he'd intended. "Because in 2 days, you've given me more hope than I've felt in 3 years. Because you see solutions where I see only problems. And because—" He paused, aware that Diego was listening intently. "Because I think your mom is remarkable, and remarkable people deserve remarkable opportunities." Diego grinned. "See, I told you he likes you." That night, driving back to his empty penthouse apartment, Richard realized that somewhere between yesterday's desperation and today's hospital waiting room, his motivations had become completely tangled. Yes, Emma Rodriguez was brilliant. Yes, she might save his company. But more than that, she made him remember what it felt like to care about someone else's happiness, more than his own success. And tomorrow, Marcus Kane would expect to find a defeated CEO ready to surrender. Instead, he was going to find a man who finally had something worth fighting for. Friday morning arrived with the weight of reckoning. Richard stood in his office at 6 a.m., watching the sun rise over Manhattan while Emma ran final calculations on her new computer setup. Diego sat at the conference table, coloring quietly, his cast already decorated with dinosaur stickers. "The patents are filed," Emma announced, looking up from dual monitors. That made her previous tablet work seem primitive. "All 17 innovations. Filed under Sterling Technologies with both our names listed as co-inventors. Kane's lawyers will be here at 9. Richard's voice was steady, but Emma could see the tension in his shoulders. "Once we sign those papers, there's no going back. We're not signing anything." Emma's confidence had grown stronger over the past 3 days. "Trust me." At exactly 9 o'clock, Marcus Kane arrived with 2 lawyers and a briefcase full of contracts. His predatory smile was brighter than ever as he surveyed the office, not noticing the new computer equipment or the small boy drawing in the corner. "Richard, you look terrible. Good thing you're making the smart choice today. Actually, Marcus, I've been thinking about your offer." Richard's performance was flawless, the defeated CEO everyone expected to see. 35 cents on the dollar is insulting. Kane's smile faltered slightly. "Richard, you're hardly in a position to negotiate." "Maybe not, but I did some research on your other acquisitions. You always lowball by exactly 60%. Then pretend you're being generous when you increase by 5 cents. Emma watched from her workstation, impressed by Richard's strategic shift. They'd rehearsed this carefully. "Fine. 40 cents on the dollar. My final offer, 45. Kane's lawyers exchanged glances. This wasn't going according to their script. "Richard, your company is bleeding money. You lost your head engineer. Your technology doesn't work." "About that." Richard walked to Emma's desk, picking up a tablet. "Emma, show Mr. Kane our latest efficiency tests." Emma's fingers flew over the keyboard, bringing up a real-time simulation on the large wall monitor. Yesterday's prototype testing showed 68% conversion efficiency. Kane went very still. "That's impossible, unless someone has been feeding you false information for 8 months. Richard's voice carried the sharp edge of a predator who had just revealed his fangs. "Tell me, Marcus, what did David Chen charge for industrial espionage?" The color drained from Kane's face. "I don't know what you're talking about." Emma stood, moving to stand beside Richard. "We have recordings of 14 phone calls between Chen and your assistant. We have email evidence of payment transfers. And we have documentation proving deliberate sabotage of Sterling Technologies investor presentations. Who is this woman?" Kane's voice was desperate now. "Dr. Emma Rodriguez, MIT, our new Chief Technology Officer." Richard's smile was razor-sharp. "She's also the mathematician who solved the efficiency problems your spy couldn't quite manage to destroy completely." Kane's lawyers were already whispering urgently in his ear. "Richard, I'm sure we can work out some arrangement. The arrangement is simple, Marcus. You have exactly 1 hour to withdraw your acquisition offer and publicly announce that Sterling Technologies has achieved a breakthrough in solar efficiency. Otherwise, the FBI gets very interested in your corporate espionage activities." After Kane and his lawyers fled, Emma collapsed into her chair, adrenaline leaving her shaky. "We actually did it. We did." Richard was staring at the door, hardly believing Kane had walked away so easily. "Emma, I need to ask you something important." Before he could continue, Diego looked up from his coloring. "Are you going to kiss her now? In the movies, this is when the guy kisses the girl." "Diego," Emma's face flushed scarlet, but Richard was walking toward her, his expression serious and intent. "He has a point. Richard, we work together now. We should be professional, Emma." He stopped directly in front of her. 3 days ago, I was about to lose everything I'd built. You saved my company, exposed my enemies, and gave me a future I'd stopped believing in. It was just math, it was courage, and brilliance, and trust. His voice dropped to almost a whisper. "And somewhere in the last 72 hours, I stopped thinking about you as my employee and started thinking about you as what? As the woman I'm falling in love with." Emma's breath caught. "Richard, I'm not. I'm a single mother who works 3 jobs. You're a billionaire CEO. This is crazy, maybe. But crazy seems to be working for us so far." Diego cleared his throat loudly. "Mom, he's really nice. and he let me decorate his conference room. Also, he has a helicopter." "You have a helicopter?" Emma asked faintly. "Focus, Emma." Richard's hands found hers. "The question isn't whether this is practical. The question is whether you feel it too." Emma looked into his eyes, seeing not the intimidating businessman she'd observed from afar for 2 years, but the man who had rushed to the hospital for her son, who had given her the tools she needed to succeed, who looked at her like she was the most fascinating person in the world. "I feel it," she whispered. Richard leaned down, and Emma rose to meet him halfway. Their first kiss was gentle, tentative, full of promise and possibility. Finally, Diego announced, "Can we get pizza now? This is definitely a pizza celebration." As they broke apart, laughing, Emma realized that everything in her carefully controlled life had just shifted dramatically. But for the first time since Diego's father had abandoned them, she wasn't afraid of the uncertainty. She was excited about it. 6 weeks had passed since Marcus Kane's humiliating retreat, and Sterling Technologies was experiencing the kind of growth that made financial newspapers run breathless headlines. Emma's solar efficiency breakthrough had attracted international attention, and orders were pouring in faster than they could scale production. But success brought its own complications. "Richard, we need to talk." Emma stood in the doorway of his office, her expression serious in a way that immediately set off alarm bells. "What's wrong?" He looked up from contract negotiations with a German energy consortium. "Is it Diego? His cast comes off next week." "It's not Diego, it's us." Richard's heart sank. For 6 weeks, they'd been navigating the delicate balance between professional partners and personal attraction. Stolen kisses in empty conference rooms, lingering touches when they reviewed technical specifications, and the growing tension of wanting more while maintaining appearances at work. Emma closed the door behind her and activated the privacy setting that frosted the glass walls. "I just got off the phone with a reporter from Forbes. She's doing a story about our company's turnaround. That's good news, isn't it? She knows about us, Richard, about our relationship." She asked if it was true that the CEO of Sterling Technologies was romantically involved with a former cleaning lady who happened to save his company. Richard's jaw tightened. "What did you tell her?" "I told her no comment." "But Richard, this is going to come out, and when it does," Emma sat down across from his desk, "the narrative is going to be that you're either exploiting your employee or that I manipulated my way into your bed to advance my career, both of which are completely false. Truth doesn't matter. Perception does." Emma's voice was pained. "I've worked too hard to be taken seriously, to have my achievements reduced to a romantic scandal." Richard stood and moved around the desk, kneeling beside her chair. "Emma, what are you saying?" "I'm saying maybe we need to cool things down. Publicly, at least, until the company is more stable." "For how long?" "I don't know." Her eyes filled with tears. "Richard, I care about you. More than I expected to. But I also care about this work, about what we're building together. I don't want to lose either." Richard took her hands in his. "What if there was a third option?" "What do you mean?" "What if we went public with our relationship, but on our own terms?" Richard's voice was gaining strength as the idea formed. "What if we told our story first, before someone else could spin it?" Emma frowned. "How?" "The Technology Innovation Gala is next month. Every major industry publication will be there. What if we attended together, officially?" "Richard, that's a huge risk. Is it bigger than the risk of hiding something that makes us both happy?" He squeezed her hands. "Emma, I love you. Not because you saved my company. Not because you're brilliant though you are, but because you make me remember what it feels like to build something with someone I care about." Emma's breath caught. "You love me?" "I've been trying to find the right time to tell you for 2 weeks, but there isn't a right time." "Is there?" "There's just the truth. I love you too." The words came out in a rush. "I've been so scared, Richard. Scared that this is too good to be true, that something will go wrong. Something might go wrong. But Emma, look what we've accomplished in 6 weeks by trusting each other. Your innovations, our partnership, the way Diego lights up when he talks about coming to the office." Richard's voice was full of conviction. "This isn't a scandal waiting to happen. This is a love story." The intercom buzzed. "Mr. Sterling, Diego's school is on line 1. He wants to talk to his mom." Emma smiled. Through her tears, I should take that. Take it here. Richard handed her the phone. Hi, baby. How was school? Emma's voice immediately transformed into the warm maternal tone Diego knew and loved. Mom. Guess what? I'm getting my cast off early, and Tommy invited me to his birthday party this weekend. And his mom said she can pick me up if you're too busy with work. Emma glanced at Richard. Actually, sweetheart, I think Richard and I might be free to take you ourselves. Would you like that, really? Both of you, like a family? Richard gestured for the phone. Hey, Diego, what do you think about helping me pick out a present for Tommy? Can we get something really cool, like a remote control helicopter? I think we can manage that. After Diego hung up, Emma studied Richard's face. He said like a family, I heard. Is that what we're becoming, a family? Richard stood, pulling Emma up with him. I think we became a family the moment you stayed up all night to save my company. The moment I realized I couldn't imagine facing any of this without you. The moment Diego started calling this place our office, Emma wrapped her arms around his neck. The Technology Innovation Gala, huh? Full disclosure, red carpet, interviews, the works. What if they ask intrusive questions? Then we tell them the truth. That sometimes the most extraordinary things come from the most ordinary moments. That love and partnership and brilliance can be found anywhere, if you're smart enough to recognize them. Emma kissed him softly. When you put it like that, it sounds almost simple. The best things usually are. Outside the office windows, the afternoon sun painted Manhattan in golden light, and Emma realized that for the first time in her adult life, she wasn't just surviving day by day. She was building a future she actually wanted to live in, and that future included the man holding her, the brilliant work they were creating together, and the little boy who would come home tonight excited to hear about their plans for the weekend. But neither of them could have predicted what Marcus Kane was planning in response to their public success, or how much they would need each other. When the real test of their partnership began, the Technology Innovation Gala at the Plaza Hotel was New York's most prestigious annual gathering of industry leaders, and Emma had never felt more out of place. Despite the stunning midnight blue dress Richard had insisted on buying her, she couldn't shake the feeling that everyone was staring. You look beautiful, Richard whispered as they walked the red carpet, camera flashes illuminating their path. And brilliant. Don't forget brilliant. Mr. Sterling, a reporter thrust a microphone toward them. Is it true you're dating your former cleaning lady? Richard's jaw tightened. But Emma stepped forward smoothly. Dr. Emma Rodriguez, Chief Technology Officer of Sterling Technologies, and yes, Richard and I are together. How do you respond to critics who say this is just a publicity stunt? I'd say they haven't seen our patent filings or our quarterly projections. Emma's voice was steady, confident. Sterling Technologies has revolutionized solar efficiency because of innovative engineering, not romantic drama. Inside the ballroom, they mingled with industry titans who seemed genuinely impressed by Emma's technical knowledge. Richard watched her explain quantum photovoltaic principles to a group of German investors. Pride swelling in his chest. She's remarkable, said Victoria Chen, editor of Tech Innovation Quarterly. Our readers want to know everything about her background. Then you should interview her properly. Richard replied, not as my girlfriend, but as the scientist who's changing renewable energy forever. The evening's highlight came when Sterling Technologies won the Innovation Excellence Award. As Emma joined Richard on stage, the applause was thunderous. 6 months ago, I thought I was going to lose everything, Richard said into the microphone. Then I learned that sometimes salvation comes from the most unexpected places. Dr. Rodriguez didn't just save my company, she showed me that the best partnerships combine professional excellence with personal trust. Emma took the microphone. Science works best when brilliant minds collaborate without ego or hierarchy. Mr. Sterling gave me the platform to pursue innovations I dreamed about for years. Together, we're building technology that will benefit future generations. As they left the stage, hand in hand, Emma felt a surge of confidence. They'd presented themselves as equals, partners in both business and life. But in the crowd, Marcus Kane watched with cold calculation. His first plan had failed, but he hadn't built his empire by accepting defeat easily. The real war was just beginning. Monday morning brought devastating news that shattered the post-gala euphoria. Richard found Emma at her desk at 6 a.m., staring at her computer screen in shock. Someone hacked our entire patent database. She said without looking up, every formula, every innovation we've developed over the past 2 months, gone. Gone? Richard's blood ran cold. What do you mean gone? Stolen and simultaneously deleted from our servers. Whoever did this knew exactly what they were looking for. Emma's voice was eerily calm. They took the quantum efficiency algorithms, the thermal resistance modifications, even the manufacturing specifications we haven't announced yet. Richard's phone rang immediately. His lawyer's voice was grim. Richard, we have a problem. Kane Industries just filed 17 patent applications this morning. Every single one matches your technology exactly. That's impossible. Our patents were filed weeks ago. Kane's lawyers are claiming prior development dating back 2 years. They have documentation, prototypes, even test results that supposedly predate your work. Emma looked up from her computer. It's David Chen. He had access to our early research, our development timeline. He could have backdated documents, created false evidence. But we have proof, do we? Emma's voice was bleak. Richard, they didn't just steal our current work. They went deeper. They have files from before I even started working here. Research that only David could have provided. The intercom buzzed. Mr. Sterling, there are federal agents here to see you. 2 FBI agents entered with briefcases and serious expressions. Mr. Sterling, we're investigating allegations of corporate espionage against Sterling Technologies. Allegations by whom? Kane Industries claims you've been stealing their proprietary technology for over a year. They have evidence suggesting Dr. Rodriguez was planted in your company specifically to conduct industrial espionage. Emma went white. That's completely false, Mum. We need to ask you not to leave the city while this investigation is ongoing. The senior agent's voice was professional but cold. Mr. Sterling, we'll need access to all your development files and research databases. After the agents left, Emma slumped in her chair. Richard, this is exactly what I was afraid of. They're going to destroy both of us. No, they're not. Richard's voice carried steel determination. Kane made one mistake. He got greedy. What do you mean? If Kane really had this technology for 2 years, why hasn't he been manufacturing solar panels? Why hasn't he announced any breakthroughs? Richard was pacing now, his mind racing. He's claiming prior development, but he can't explain why he never acted on it. Emma's eyes brightened slightly. You're right. And the technical specifications he filed, they include modifications I made just last week. Improvements that couldn't possibly have existed 2 years ago. Can you prove that? Maybe. If I can access the original development logs, Emma was already typing furiously. Richard, I need to get to Met. Professor Williams has archived copies of all my graduate research. If I can show that Kane's supposedly prior work includes algorithms I developed in graduate school, Emma, if you leave New York, the FBI will consider it evidence of guilt. Then you'll have to trust me. Richard stared at the woman who had become the center of his world. What do you need? 24 hours and access to MIT's engineering archives. Done. As Emma gathered her materials, Richard realized they were facing the fight of their lives. Kane hadn't just stolen their technology, he'd tried to steal their entire future. But Richard Sterling hadn't built an empire by backing down from fights. And he wasn't about to start now. Emma's train to Boston left Penn Station at midnight, carrying with it Richard's hopes and fears. She'd insisted on going alone, arguing that Richard's presence would only attract more attention from both the FBI and Kane's surveillance team. That by dawn, Richard was pacing his empty office like a caged animal. His lawyers were confident they could fight Kane's patent claims, but legal battles took years. Sterling Technologies needed immediate vindication, or their investors would flee and their customers would cancel orders. The phone rang. Marcus Kane's voice was smooth as silk. Richard, I'm calling to offer you one final opportunity. Go to hell. Marcus, such hostility. I'm prepared to drop all legal proceedings and sell you back your own technology. Very reasonable terms. What terms? 70% of Sterling Technologies. Plus Dr. Rodriguez's resignation and a public apology for industrial espionage. Richard's grip on the phone tightened. You want me to destroy Emma's career to save my company? I want you to face reality. The FBI has enough evidence to charge her with federal crimes. Her academic credentials won't matter from a prison cell. After Kane hung up, Richard stared out at the Manhattan skyline. For the first time since this nightmare began, doubt crept into his mind. What if he couldn't protect Emma? What if fighting Kane meant losing everything, including the woman he loved? His phone buzzed. A text from Emma. Found something. Professor Williams remembers David Chen visiting last year, asking about my graduate research. He was conducting background verification for Sterling Technologies. Richard's heart raced. David had been gathering intelligence on Emma long before she'd revealed her true capabilities. Kane's plan had been in motion for over a year. Another text, getting copies of all archive files. Chen accessed my quantum efficiency work 3 months before I started cleaning your office. Before Richard could respond, his assistant rushed in. Mr. Sterling, Diego's school called. He never arrived this morning. Terror shot through Richard's veins. What do you mean? The bus driver said Diego got off at his regular stop, but he never checked in with the front office. Richard was already grabbing his coat. Call Emma. Now. But Emma's phone went straight to voicemail. For the first time since this ordeal began, Richard felt the cold grip of real fear. Kane had escalated beyond corporate espionage. He'd made this personal. Richard found Diego 3 hours later, sitting in a McDonald's near Queens Plaza with a man in an expensive suit, who introduced himself as Kane's head of security. Uncle Marcus said you and Mom are in trouble, Diego said innocently, his cast-free arm wrapped around a Happy Meal toy. He said I should wait here until it's safe to go home. Richard's vision went red. You kidnapped an 8-year-old. We rescued him. The security chief corrected calmly. Mr. Kane was concerned about the boy's safety. Given the federal investigation into his mother's criminal activities, Diego, come here. Now. As Diego ran to him, Richard called Emma. This time she answered on the first ring. Richard, I have everything we need. Chen accessed my files 9 times over 14 months. I can prove Kane's been planning this. Emma, stop talking and listen. Kane took Diego. The silence stretched so long Richard thought the call had dropped. When Emma spoke again, her voice was deadly quiet. Is he hurt? He's fine. He's with me now. But Emma, Kane just declared war on our family. Then we give him what he wants. Emma's voice was hollow. I'll confess to industrial espionage. I'll resign. Whatever it takes to protect Diego. No. Richard's voice carried absolute authority. We end this. Tonight, Richard, we can't fight someone who's willing to threaten children. We don't fight him, Emma. We destroy him. 4 hours later, Emma stood in Richard's office with Professor Williams, FBI agent Sarah Chen, no relation to David, and a stack of archived documents that told a devastating story. Mr. Kane's technology theft goes back over 2 years, Professor Williams explained to Agent Chen. David Chen wasn't just stealing current research, he was systematically mapping Dr. Rodriguez's academic history to prepare for future plagiarism. Emma spread the evidence across the conference table. Every algorithm Kane claims to have developed prior to our work can be traced to either my graduate research or specific modifications I made after joining Sterling Technologies. More importantly, Agent Chen said, reviewing the timeline, Kane's people have been conducting illegal surveillance on Dr. Rodriguez for over a year, including photographing her child and mapping his daily routines. Richard felt a fierce satisfaction as he realized Kane's greatest weakness, his arrogance, had made him sloppy. What's the timeline for charges? Richard asked. We'll have warrants issued tonight. Corporate espionage, conspiracy, kidnapping charges for taking the child. Agent Chen's smile was grim. Mr. Kane won't be making any more offers. As the FBI team left with their evidence, Emma collapsed into Richard's arms. It's really over. Kane's finished. His company will be under federal investigation for years. His investors will flee. His board will remove him. Emma pulled back to look at him. Richard, I need to ask you something important. Anything. Diego calls you Uncle Richard now, not Mr. Sterling. Richard's heart stopped. Is that a problem? It is if you're just planning to be his uncle. The weight of the question hung between them. Richard had been so focused on fighting their enemies. He hadn't considered what victory would actually look like. Emma Rodriguez, he said quietly. I love you. I love Diego. I want to build a life with both of you, if you'll have me. Emma's eyes filled with tears. Are you asking what I think you're asking? I'm asking if you want to be more than business partners. Richard Sterling, she whispered. I thought you'd never ask. The engagement ring was perfect as simple solitaire. That caught the light like one of Emma's solar panels. Beautiful and brilliant without unnecessary complexity. Richard had chosen it while Emma was in Boston, driven by a certainty that surprised him with its intensity. Now, 3 days after Kane's arrest, he stood outside Diego's bedroom door, gathering courage for the most important conversation of his life. Hey, buddy, can I come in? Diego was assembling a complex Lego spaceship, his small fingers surprisingly deft with the tiny pieces. Sure, look, it's a Mars exploration vessel. Mom said when I'm older, we might actually have real ones. Richard sat on the edge of the bed. Diego, I need to ask you something very serious. Okay. Diego didn't look up from his project, but Richard could see the boy's attention sharpen. How would you feel if I asked your mom to marry me? Diego's hands went still. For a long moment, the only sound was traffic humming outside the apartment window. Would that mean you'd be my dad? The simple question hit Richard like a physical blow. Would you want me to be? Diego finally looked up, his dark eyes serious beyond his years. My real dad left because he didn't want to take care of me. You stayed even when people tried to hurt us. I stayed because I love you and your mom. That's what families do, they stay, even when things get scary, especially when things get scary. Diego nodded solemnly. Then yes, I want you to be my dad. An hour later, Richard found Emma in the kitchen, reviewing technical specifications for their latest manufacturing contract. The sight of her hair pulled back in a messy bun, reading glasses perched on her nose, completely absorbed in complex equations, made his heart race the same way it had that first night. She'd corrected his calculations. Emma, she looked up, and whatever she saw in his expression made her set down her papers completely. I have something to ask you, Richard. If this is about the Hartford contract, marry me. The words hung in the air between them. Emma's eyes went wide, and Richard realized he'd completely abandoned the romantic speech he'd rehearsed. Marry you? I know it's fast. I know we've only been together a few months. But Emma, I've never been more certain of anything in my life. Richard knelt beside her chair, pulling the ring box from his pocket. You saved my company. But more than that, you saved me. You made me remember what it feels like to build something with someone I love. Emma stared at the ring, tears already flowing. Richard, I already asked Diego. He said yes. By the way, enthusiastically, you asked my son for permission to marry me? I asked him if he wanted me to be his dad. Because Emma, I don't just want to marry you, I want us to be a family. All three of us. Emma's hands were shaking as she reached for the ring. A year ago, I was cleaning offices and trying to make rent. Now you're offering me everything I never dared to dream about. Is that a yes? That's a yes, but only if you promise me something, anything. Promise me we'll always be partners. In business, in parenting, in everything. Equal partners. Richard slipped the ring onto her finger, marveling at how perfectly it fit. Dr. Emma Rodriguez, soon-to-be Sterling, you are the smartest, strongest, most remarkable woman I've ever known. I wouldn't dream of being anything other than your equal partner. In that case, Emma said, pulling him up for a kiss, I guess we're getting married. From the hallway came Diego's voice. Finally, can we tell everyone at school tomorrow? Richard and Emma broke apart, laughing. Their 8-year-old son was apparently a better timekeeper than either of them. Tomorrow, Emma called back, we'll tell the whole world. But tonight, Richard realized, was just for them, their new family, their bright future, and the love that had grown from the most unlikely beginning into something extraordinary. 6 months later, Sterling Technologies headquarters buzzed with pre-wedding excitement. Emma had insisted on a small ceremony, But small for Richard Sterling still meant 100 guests. In the building's transformed main lobby, with Diego as ring bearer and the entire engineering team as witnesses. "You sure about this?" Emma asked Richard as they stood in his office, putting finishing touches on their vows. "Last chance to back out before you're legally bound to a former cleaning lady. First of all, you were never just a cleaning lady, you were a brilliant scientist who happened to be cleaning offices." Richard adjusted his tie, nervous in a way he hadn't been since his first board presentation 20 years ago. "Second, I've been legally bound to you since the moment you corrected my calculations." Through the office windows, they could see guests arriving, colleagues, investors, Emma's professors from MIT, and even FBI agent Chen, who had become an unexpected friend during Kane's prosecution. Kane himself was serving 18 months in federal prison for corporate espionage and conspiracy. David Chen had received a shorter sentence in exchange for cooperation, but his career in technology was permanently destroyed. Sterling Technologies had not only survived their attacks, but emerged stronger, with Emma's innovations making them the global leader in solar efficiency. "Mr. Sterling?" Diego appeared in the doorway, impossibly handsome in his miniature tuxedo. "Mom, you look like a princess." Emma knelt to straighten his bow tie. "How are you feeling?" "Sweetheart, ready to be part of this crazy family officially?" "I've been ready since Richard let me design the new solar panel array for our roof." Diego grinned. "Plus, now I can tell kids at school that my dad is a billionaire." "Your dad is also a man who loves you more than all the money in the world," Richard said, ruffling Diego's hair. The ceremony itself was perfect in its simplicity. Emma walked down the aisle alone, confident and radiant, while Diego waited at the altar beside Richard. Her dress was elegant, but practical, the kind of choice that was so essentially Emma, that Richard felt his throat tighten with emotion when they reached the vow exchange. Emma spoke first. "Richard, a year ago, I thought my dreams were too big for my circumstances. You showed me that the right partner doesn't just support your dreams, they help you exceed them. You saw potential in me when I couldn't see it in myself. You gave me not just love, but the platform to change the world. I promise to be your equal partner in everything we build together." Richard's voice was steady despite the tears in his eyes. "Emma, you taught me that the most extraordinary discoveries come from paying attention to what others overlook. You were hiding in plain sight for 2 years, and when I finally saw you clearly, you transformed everything I thought I knew about love, partnership, and possibility. I promise to never stop seeing you, believing in you, and building our future together." When the judge pronounced them husband and wife, Diego cheered loudly enough to make the entire audience laugh. As Richard kissed his bride, he heard someone call out, "Save some romance for the honeymoon." At the reception, Emma found herself surrounded by reporters, eager to document the fairy tale ending to their corporate drama. But the story wasn't a fairy tale. She reflected it was something better. It was real. "Dr. Sterling," asked Victoria Chen from Tech Innovation Quarterly, "what's next for you and Sterling Technologies?" "We're opening our first manufacturing facility in Diego's hometown in Puerto Rico," Emma replied. "The island's energy independence project will be powered entirely by our solar technology. It's a chance to give back while creating jobs in the community where I grew up, and personally." Emma looked across the room where Richard was deep in conversation with Diego about the boys' latest engineering project, something involving renewable energy and basketball. "Personally, we're building the kind of family I always dreamed about. One where love and ambition aren't contradictory, where partnership means lifting each other up, and where an 8-year-old boy gets to see that anything is possible when people work together." As the evening wound down, Richard found Emma on the balcony overlooking Manhattan, the city lights twinkling like stars. "No regrets?" he asked, wrapping his arms around her from behind. "Just one," Emma said, leaning back against his chest. "What's that?" "I wish we could go back and tell the Emma who was cleaning offices 2 years ago what was coming. She was so scared, working so hard just to survive. I'd love to tell her that everything she was hoping for was about to come true." "Maybe she knew," Richard said softly. "Maybe that's why she had the courage to speak up that night. Maybe she sensed that something extraordinary was about to begin. Maybe." Emma turned in his arms. Thank you, Richard Sterling. For what? For seeing me. For trusting me. For loving Diego like your own. For showing me that happily ever after isn't just for fairy tales. As they kissed under the Manhattan stars, with their son's laughter floating up from the party below, and their bright future stretching endlessly ahead, Emma realized that the best love stories weren't about rescue or transformation. They were about recognition to people seeing in each other exactly what they'd been looking for all along. And sometimes, if you were very lucky, they were about finding your perfect partner hiding in plain sight, just waiting for the right moment to change your world forever.